Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Lunar Command, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she watched Earth rotate slowly beneath her. After 30 years of service, she thought she'd seen everything space could throw at them. She was wrong. "Admiral," her eye assistant's voice was uncharacteristically hesitant. "We've lost contact with Nueva Manila." Chen's jaw tightened. Nueva Manila was humanity's most distant colony, a thriving metropolis of 3 million souls on a terraformed perfect world. "Show me the last transmission." The holoscreen materialized before her, displaying the final moments captured by the colony's defense grid. The objects appeared from nowhere. Sleek vessels that seemed to be made of liquid metal, their hulls reflecting the light of Nueva Manila's twin suns. There were dozens of them, moving with impossible grace through the colony's defense screen as if it wasn't there. Then the killing began. The alien weapons didn't fire energy beams or projectiles. Instead, they released waves of something that looked like heat distortion, except where these waves passed. Matter simply stopped being matter. Buildings, vehicles, defense platforms, all transformed into clouds of component atoms that dissolved into nothingness. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Chen staring at static. "How long to go?" 17 minutes, Admiral. "We've already dispatched the 7th Fleet, but given the distance, they'll arrive far too late." Chen closed her eyes. "Alert all colonies. Full evacuation protocols. And get me the Security Council." The next 48 hours became a blur of horror. The aliens, which they later learned called themselves the Mzekti, moved methodically through human space. Colony after colony vanished, their populations atomized by weapons that defied physics as humanity understood it. The combined might of Earth's defense forces proved useless against the invaders' technology. In her temporary quarters beneath Lunar Command, Chen reviewed the casualty reports with General Victor Rossi of the Marine Corps and Dr. Elena Santos, Earth's leading xenophysicist. 8 colonies gone. Rossi's voice was hoarse. 15 million dead, and our best weapons might as well be spitballs against their shields. Dr. Santos manipulated a hologram showing readings from the alien weapons. Their technology. It's not just advanced, it's operating on principles we didn't even know existed. They're manipulating fundamental forces we haven't discovered yet. "Can we replicate it?" Chen asked. Santos laughed bitterly. "With our current understanding, it would be like asking a medieval blacksmith to build a quantum computer. Then we need to think differently." Chen stood, walking to the tactical display showing the Mzekti fleet's advance. "They're not just killing us. They're erasing us. Like we're an infection to be cleansed." The intercepted communications support that, Santos agreed. "They see us as primitive contaminants in their space. The fact that we've been in these systems for generations means nothing to them." Chen studied the display, her mind racing. Humanity had always prided itself on thinking outside the box, on finding solutions where none seemed possible. "Dr. Santos, you said we can't replicate their technology. But what if we don't need to? What if instead of trying to match their understanding of physics, we find ways to break it entirely?" Santos frowned. "Break physics? Admiral, that's not possible. Neither was faster than light travel until we discovered the Shaw-Fujita effect. Neither was artificial gravity until the Martinez breakthrough." Chen's eyes gleamed with a dangerous light. "They think we're primitive. Fine. Let's show them something primitive. Something so fundamentally wrong it wouldn't occur to their sophisticated minds." Rossi leaned forward, intrigued. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "Project Prometheus," Chen said softly. "The theoretical weapons research we shut down 5 years ago because it was too dangerous, too unpredictable." Santos paled. "Those experiments were breaking down the fabric of reality itself. We were getting readings that violated causality." "Exactly." Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. "They expect us to fight according to the rules of physics, so let's break those rules. Let's show them something that shouldn't exist. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Rossi spoke. The Security Council will never approve it. They will when the alternative is human extinction. Chen turned to Santos. Doctor, can you restart the project? Santos was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns in the air as she ran calculations in her head. Yes, she said finally. But Admiral, if we do this, if we actually succeed in breaking the laws of physics themselves, there's no telling what the consequences might be. The consequences of doing nothing are 15 million dead, with billions more to follow. Chen's voice was iron. Send out the call. Get every physicist, engineer, and mad scientist we have. Tell them all restrictions are off, all ethical constraints suspended. We're going to give the Mizikti something they've never seen before. Weapons that shouldn't exist, ships that violate reality itself. She turned back to the tactical display, watching another human colony vanish under the Mizikti onslaught. They think we're primitive. Fine. Let's show them something truly primitive. Humanity's capacity for nightmare creation when pushed too far. As Santos and Rossi left to begin preparations, Chen remained in the command center, watching Earth spin below. Humanity had just been given a brutal introduction to its place in the galaxy. But if her plan worked, the galaxy was about to learn something too. What happened when you pushed humans to the brink of extinction? They would break physics itself to survive. And may whatever gods might exist have mercy on the universe when they did. Deep beneath the Martian surface, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Elena Santos watched as reality itself began to tear. The test chamber was heavily shielded, but even through multiple layers of experimental containment fields, she could see the wrongness of what they'd created. The device was small, no larger than a coffee maker, but the space around it seemed to fold and twist like paper in a flame. Power levels holding steady, reported Dr. James Chen, her lead engineer. His voice shook slightly as he read the measurements. Quantum variance at 300% above theoretical maximum. Reality distortion field expanding at. He trailed off, staring at his instruments in disbelief. Santos understood his reaction. The numbers they were seeing shouldn't have been possible. They violated every known law of physics. That was exactly what they wanted. 3 months had passed since the Mizikti began their systematic erasure of human colonies. 3 months of desperate work, of pushing science beyond its breaking point. The facility now housed over 500 of Earth's brightest minds, all focused on one goal: creating weapons that broke reality itself. Initiate test sequence Alpha, Santos ordered, forcing her voice to remain steady. On the other side of the chamber, a target drone hovered, standard military issue, heavily shielded. The device hummed, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The air rippled, and for a moment, Santos could have sworn she saw multiple versions of the drone overlapping, as if reality couldn't quite decide which one was real. Then it happened. The drone didn't explode. It didn't disintegrate. Instead, it seemed to fold in on itself, becoming two-dimensional, then one-dimensional, then something else, something that hurt to look at. When the effect faded, the drone was simply gone, not destroyed, erased, as if it had never existed at all. Test successful, James whispered, his face pale. But sir, the readings, I think we just deleted that drone from time itself. Not just here and now, but everywhere. Everywhen. Santos nodded grimly. That's what we wanted. The Mizikti weapons erase matter. Ours will erase causality itself. She turned to Admiral Chen, who had watched the test in silence from the observation deck. The Admiral's expression was unreadable. How soon can we weaponize this? Chen asked. We already have designs for ship-mounted versions, Santos replied. But Admiral, there's something else you need to see. She led Chen to her private lab, where dozens of holographic displays showed the results of their experiments. The technology isn't just breaking physics in the test chamber, it's spreading. Each test creates microscopic tears in spacetime. They heal themselves, mostly, but some remain. And they're growing. Chen studied the displays. Dangerous. Potentially catastrophic. We're not just breaking the laws of physics. We're changing them. Permanently. Each test makes it a little easier to break reality the next time. It's like we're teaching the universe new rules. Terrible ones. Do the MZT weapons have the same effect? Santos shook her head. No. Their technology is advanced, but it still operates within natural laws. What we're doing, this is different. This is wrong on a fundamental level. The universe itself is trying to reject it. Chen was quiet for a long moment. How long until we can begin production? Admiral, did you hear what I just said? We're breaking reality itself. The long-term consequences. The long-term consequences won't matter if humanity doesn't survive to see them. Chen cut her off. How long? Santos sighed. 2 months for the first prototype ship. But we'll need a volunteer crew. The effects of reality distortion on human psychology are unpredictable. I already have volunteers, Chen said. Every survivor from the destroyed colonies has signed up. They don't care about the risks. As if to emphasize her point, an alarm blared through the facility. Both women rushed to the nearest console. Another colony gone, Chen reported, her voice tight. New Athens, 4 million dead. Santos stared at the casualty report, feeling the weight of each number. Then she straightened her shoulders. 1 month, she said. We'll have the first ship ready in 1 month. But Admiral, once we do this, once we start breaking physics on a large scale, there's no going back. We'll be changing the fundamental nature of reality itself. Chen's eyes were hard as steel. The MZT changed the fundamental nature of reality for 15 million humans already. They ceased to exist. At least our way, humanity will survive to deal with the consequences. As if in response, the lights in the lab flickered. In the corners of the room, shadows moved in ways shadows shouldn't. The universe was already beginning to twist around their work. Begin mass production, Chen ordered. And Dr. Santos, remove all safety limitations, all of them. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you push humanity too far. Santos nodded, turning back to her work. In the reflective surface of a deactivated screen, she caught a glimpse of her own face. She barely recognized herself anymore. None of them were the same people they'd been 3 months ago. But then that was the point. The MZT thought they were dealing with primitives. They were about to learn that primitives could be far more terrifying than any advanced civilization could imagine. In the test chamber behind them, reality continued to tear, one small rip at a time. The universe shuddered, preparing itself for what was to come. Captain Maya Rodriguez couldn't stop seeing the shadows. They danced at the edge of her vision, twisting into impossible shapes before vanishing when she tried to focus on them. The doctors called it reality strain, a side effect of prolonged exposure to the physics-breaking engines that powered humanity's new fleet. She wasn't the only one affected. Throughout the massive underground shipyard on Titan, crews working on the reality warping ships reported similar symptoms. Some saw things that couldn't exist. Others reported hearing whispers in languages that human vocal cords couldn't produce. A few claimed they could remember multiple versions of the same events, as if their minds were picking up echoes from parallel timelines. The ship before her, the HS Nemesis, was nearly complete. It hung in the construction bay like a wound in spacetime, its hull seeming to exist in multiple places at once. Looking at it for too long gave her headaches, but Maya couldn't look away. This was her ship, the first of humanity's nightmare fleet. Captain. Dr. Santos approached, her footsteps echoing strangely in the distorted space near the ship. The final systems check is complete. She's ready. Maya nodded, noting how Santos' outlines seemed to blur, as if the scientist wasn't quite anchored to a single point in space-time anymore. They were all changing, adapted by proximity to their impossible creations. How bad are the temporal anomalies? Maya asked. Santos consulted her tablet, though Maya noticed her eyes didn't quite focus on it. Getting worse. Yesterday, a maintenance crew reported fixing a leak before it happened. When we checked the logs, both events, the fix and the leak, had occurred simultaneously, despite being 12 hours apart. And the crew. They remember both timelines. Their brains are adapting to perceive causality differently. Santos paused. It's spreading beyond the shipyard now. We're getting reports of temporal distortions up to 500 kilometers from the facility. Reality is becoming more flexible around us. Maya turned back to the Nemesis. The ship's quantum core pulsed with energy that shouldn't exist, each beat sending ripples through the fabric of space-time. Show me the weapons test results. Santos pulled up a hologram, though the images kept shifting between multiple possible states. The reality fracture torpedoes performed beyond expectations. When detonated, they don't just destroy their targets, they erase them from causality itself. Any object hit ceases to exist not just in the present, but retroactively through all of time. And the temporal wake weapons, even more effective. They create a bubble of accelerated time around the target. A 1-second burst ages everything within the field by 1,000 years. The Insect's advanced materials just crumble to dust. Maya watched as the test footage showed a captured Insecti drone aging millennia in the blink of an eye. What about the psychological effects on the firing crews? Stand down weapons, she ordered. But leave the reality anchors active. Let them see what they've created. A humanity that could break physics itself rather than accept extinction. As her crew carried out her orders, Maya watched the Insecti homeworld through her transformed perception. She could see the fear in their quantum signatures, the terror of a civilization that had discovered too late that there were things far worse than primitive technology. They had wanted to exterminate humanity for being too primitive. Instead, they had forced humanity to become something entirely new, beings that could exist in a universe where physics itself was negotiable. The war was over. But as Maya studied the quantum distortions spreading through reality like cracks in glass, she knew that something else was just beginning. Humanity had survived, but in doing so, they had changed not just themselves, but the very nature of existence. The universe would never be the same, and perhaps that had been the point all along. They emerged directly within the Insecti formation, their sudden appearance violating every law of physics the aliens understood. Maya watched through expanded senses as the enemy ships reacted, their crews struggling to comprehend what their sensors were telling them. All ships, weapons free, she commanded. Show them what nightmare really means. The Nemesis fired first, reality fracture torpedoes, launching from tubes that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The weapons didn't travel through space. They'd rewrote it, creating corridors of broken physics that erased everything they touched from history itself. 3 Insecti ships vanished, not destroyed but retroactively eliminated from existence. The universe shuddered, trying to compensate for violations of causality that went beyond mere destruction. The rest of the human fleet joined in, each ship unleashing weapons that shouldn't have been possible. The Thanatos fired temporal wake beams that aged their targets millennia in seconds. The Erebus launched probability bombs that turned its targets into quantum uncertainties, forcing them to exist in states of simultaneous destruction and survival until the paradox tore them apart. They're attempting to return fire, Chen reported, her voice echoing from futures that hadn't happened yet. Their weapons, their passing through spaces were not quite occupying. Maya watched as advanced Insecti energy weapons passed harmlessly through spaces where her ships had been milliseconds ago, or would be milliseconds later, or existed in probability states that never quite materialized. Launch chrono torpedoes, she ordered. Let's show them what primitive humans can really do. The weapons burst from the Nemesis temporal tubes, each one carrying a payload of concentrated temporal paradox. Where they struck, Insecti ships didn't explode. They unraveled, their past and future states collapsing into a singular point of impossibility. Through the quantum-enhanced sensors, Maya could see the Mzikti crews struggling to comprehend what was happening. Their advanced technology, their perfect understanding of physics, meant nothing against weapons that simply ignored reality's rules entirely. Enemy fleet is in disarray, Chen reported. They're trying to retreat, but local spacetime is too distorted. Their faster-than-light drives can't establish stable fields. Maya smiled, though her expression flickered between multiple possible versions of itself. Launch the reality anchors. Let's make sure they stay to experience everything they've earned. Devices that Dr. Santos had dubbed reality anchors pulsed out from the human ships, creating zones where conventional physics became merely a polite suggestion. The Mzikti ships, designed to work in harmony with natural laws, found themselves trapped in spaces where those laws no longer applied. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. When it was over, nothing remained of the Mzikti fleet except quantum echoes and temporal scars that would never fully heal. But as Maya surveyed the aftermath, she could see the cost of their victory. Reality itself was unraveling around them, space-time buckling under the strain of too many impossible things. The universe was changing, adapting to accommodate humanity's violations of its most fundamental laws. Status report, she ordered, though she could already see the answer written in quantum fluctuations around them. All enemy ships eliminated, Chen replied. But sir, the reality distortions are spreading faster than predicted. We're getting temporal earthquakes as far as Earth, the fabric of space-time. It's learning from us, learning how to break itself. Maya nodded, watching as shadows that shouldn't exist danced around her bridge crew. They were all changing, becoming something that could exist in a universe where physics itself was negotiable. Send word to command, she ordered. Tell them the weapons worked better than we hoped. And tell them. She paused, seeing possible futures branch, and split before her transformed eyes. Tell them we're ready to take the war to the Mzikti home systems. It's time to show them exactly what primitives can do when pushed too far. Around them, reality continued to tear, one impossible victory at a time. The Mzikti homeworld hung in space before them, a jewel of technology and civilization that had stood for millennia. Captain Maya Rodriguez watched it through senses that had evolved far beyond mere human sight. She could see the quantum frequencies of its defensive shields, the temporal harmonics of its orbital platforms, the probability waves of its citizens' lives, all operating in perfect accordance with the laws of physics, laws that humanity had long since abandoned. They're broadcasting, Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice echoing across multiple timelines simultaneously. They're begging for mercy. Maya felt the irony like a physical wave, rippling through the quantum foam of space-time around them. The mighty Mzikti, who had casually erased millions of humans from existence, were now pleading for the very thing they had denied their victims. Through the quantum-enhanced sensors of the Nemesis, she could see the enemy's desperate preparations. Their most advanced ships formed defensive patterns, their weapons charged with energies that would have seemed godlike to humanity just a year ago. Now they looked primitive. Show me the reality distortion readings, Maya ordered. The display materialized, though like everything else, it existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. The data confirmed what she could already see with her altered perception. Their use of physics-breaking weapons had changed more than just their enemies. The universe itself was different now. The temporal fractures are spreading exponentially, Dr. Santos reported from her station, her form flickering between multiple possible versions of herself. Reality is learning from us. The basic constants of the universe are becoming variable. Causality itself is starting to break down. Maya nodded, watching as probability waves collapsed and reformed around their fleet. The 12 ships of humanity's nightmare fleet had become more than just vessels. They were now epicenters of a fundamental change in how reality itself functioned. They're launching their fleet, Chen announced. Over 300 ships. Everything they have. Maya studied the approaching armada through senses that could perceive the quantum uncertainties churning beneath conventional reality. The MSCT ships were beautiful, perfect expressions of advanced technology working in harmony with natural law. That would be their undoing. All ships, prepare for final engagement, she ordered. Activate the reality anchors. Full spectrum temporal disruption. Show them what humanity has become. The Nightmare Fleet move is one, their quantum drives tearing holes in space-time that would never fully heal. Reality itself seemed to scream as they unleashed weapons that shouldn't have been possible. Torpedoes that retroactively erased their targets from history, beams that aged matter millennia in seconds, warheads that turned probable futures into weapons. The MSCT fought back with everything they had. Advanced energy weapons, gravimetric torpedoes, weapons that could destroy solar systems, all useless against ships that existed in quantum superposition, that could choose which reality they occupied moment by moment. Their shells are passing through spaces we might have been, Chen reported, her voice trembling with suppressed excitement. Their targeting systems can't resolve our quantum state. Maya watched as the battle unfolded across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The MSCT fleet, for all its power and advancement, couldn't cope with an enemy that simply ignored the rules of reality itself. Their ships began to vanish, not destroyed, but erased from existence itself, their histories unwritten by weapons that violated causality. But even as they achieved victory, Maya could see the cost. Reality was unraveling around them, the fundamental forces that held the universe together beginning to fray. Their weapons hadn't just changed the rules of warfare. They had changed the nature of existence itself. Captain, Santo's voice was urgent. The quantum readings. The universe is reaching a critical point. The laws of physics themselves are becoming unstable. If we continue. Maya held up a hand, seeing the branching possibilities with her transformed senses. In that moment, she understood what they had really created. It wasn't just weapons or ships or even victory. It was evolution. Send a message to the MSCT, she ordered. Show them what their sensors are telling them about reality itself. Show them what we've done to the universe. The message went out, carrying with it data that showed the fundamental forces of reality breaking down, of causality becoming optional, of existence itself learning new and terrible ways to function. The response came almost immediately, not just from the MSCT homeworld, but from their entire civilization. Full surrender. Unconditional. Maya laughed, the sound echoing across multiple quantum states. They finally understand, she said. We didn't just build weapons to defeat them. We changed the rules of reality itself, their perfect understanding of physics, their advanced technology. It's all meaningless now. We've introduced chaos into their ordered universe. Through the quantum sensors, she could see the truth of it. Reality itself had been changed by their desperate creations. The universe was learning new rules, terrible ones that violated everything the MSCT understood about existence. Santos was quiet for a moment. Severe. Using these weapons, it changes you. The human mind wasn't meant to comprehend erasing things from time itself. 3 gunners have already been relieved of duty. They started remembering events that never happened, lives they never lived. But the others are adapting. Yes, that's what worries me most. Santos' voice dropped. We're not just changing physics, Captain. We're changing ourselves. The crews working with these ships, they're beginning to perceive reality differently. Some can see possible futures, others remember multiple pasts. A few, she hesitated. A few have started showing signs of being able to manipulate probability itself. As if on cue, a technician working nearby dropped a tool. Instead of falling, it hung in the air, caught between multiple possible trajectories before the technician casually plucked it from the most convenient one. We're evolving, Maya said softly. The universe is rewriting us to match our weapons. Yes, and there's no going back. Even if we stop now, the changes we've made to local spacetime are permanent. Reality itself is learning new rules from us. Terrible ones. Maya smiled, and for a moment her form seemed to split into multiple versions, each wearing a slightly different expression. Good. The Mzikti thought we were primitive. Let's show them what primitives can become when pushed too far. She turned to her crew, assembled on the deck below. They all showed signs of the change. Ghostly afterimages trailing their movements, eyes that seemed to see in more dimensions than should exist, voices that occasionally echoed from futures that hadn't happened yet. Begin boarding procedures, she ordered. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity's darkness can do. As her crew moved to their stations, Maya caught her reflection in a nearby panel. Her eyes had changed, showing depths that hadn't been there before. In them, she could see possible futures branching like fractal patterns, each one stained with the blood of those who had dared to threaten humanity's existence. The shadows danced around her, no longer at the edge of her vision, but fully visible now. They weren't hallucinations, she realized. They were glimpses of what she was becoming, what they were all becoming. Something that could fight monsters by becoming something even monsters would fear. Above them, the nemesis hummed with power that could break reality itself. Humanity's answer to extinction was ready, and may whatever gods existed have mercy on those who had forced them to create it. The fleet assembled in the void beyond Saturn's orbit. 12 ships that shouldn't exist gathered around the flagship Nemesis. To normal sensors they were invisible, their existence too contradictory for conventional reality to acknowledge. But to the altered perception of their crews, they blazed like wounds in the fabric of space-time. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood on the Nemesis's bridge, her consciousness expanded by months of exposure to reality-breaking technologies. She could see the quantum threads connecting her ships, the way they twisted space-time around them like knots in the universe's fabric. Multiple Nzikti vessels detected, her tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, reported. Like all of them, Chen's voice seemed to echo from slightly different timelines as she spoke. They're advancing on the Proxima colony. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Maya nodded, feeling possibilities branch and split around her. Status of the quantum drives. Reality distortion fields at maximum capacity. Chief Engineer Hassan replied from his station. His form flickered between multiple possible states as he worked. The universe is accommodating our modifications. Local physics are becoming more flexible. Show me the Nzikti fleet. The tactical display materialized, though the holographic images kept shifting between different probability states. 20 Nzikti ships moved with their characteristic grace, their advanced technology operating in perfect harmony with natural laws that were about to be shattered. All ships, prepare for quantum jump, Maya ordered. Remember your training. Don't fight the temporal distortions. Let your minds adapt to seeing in 5 dimensions. Acknowledgments came from the other captains, their voices overlapping across multiple timelines. The fleet's quantum drives spun up, reality buckling around them as they prepared to break physics in ways even their creators hadn't fully anticipated. Jump in 3, 2, 1. The universe screamed. They didn't travel through space so much as ignore its existence entirely. For a moment that lasted both an instant and an eternity, the fleet existed everywhere and nowhere, their passage leaving tears in reality that would never fully heal.